Welcome, my name is Andrew, and this is the Who Dat Discussion, a New Orleans Saints podcast where we talk about all things New Orleans Saints news, opinions, and reactions. So before we get into some Saints news and training camp updates, I just want to say, if you enjoy our podcast, please follow us on Twitter at the Who Dat Dis, on Instagram at Who Dat Discussion, and on Podomatic at the Who Dat Discussion as well. Please subscribe to our channel on iTunes at the Who Dat Discussion, Google Play at the Who Dat Discussion, and YouTube at the Who Dat Discussion. Please like all our posts there, leave reviews, leave comments, do all that fun stuff, because that'd be really helpful for me to really, see what we need to improve on, see what we're doing well, and really get feedback from the Who Dat Nation. Also, because we're a growing podcast, any way you can share this podcast if you enjoy it would be greatly appreciated. Friends, other Saints fans, family, co-workers, that just would be really helpful because we're still so new. Even though it's episode 8 and now we're 2 months in, it's still extremely new and we're still growing immensely. So that would be just really helpful if you can share it in any way. Share it on Twitter, Instagram, just by following us and leaving comments and leaving reviews. That's just extremely helpful for us to expand this podcast and, to make it better, too. So, with all that said, let's get into some Saints news. So, we have a lot of Saints news, so let's just get right into it. So, first, the Saints released wide receiver Brandon Coleman with a failed physical designation. Coleman spent 3 years with the Saints, tallying 79 catches, 1,099 yards, and 8 touchdowns in 3 years. Last year, he had 23 touchdowns, 364 yards, and 3 TDs. Even if he was healthy, this camp I think would be really tough for him to make this team because we added a lot of wide receiver depth, especially when we signed Floyd and Tate. It was going to be really hard, for Brandon Coleman to make this roster, even if healthy, but, not healthy. There's really no shot for him. But, he was cut with the failed physical designation, so that's, big for him. So that means he has to pass a physical toll to sign with any other team. So once he gets healthy, I could see him coming back to the Saints. I could see him, if we have a couple injuries with our wide receivers, depth's a little depleted. We signed Brandon Coleman. He's a great blocking wide receiver, and he's also a pretty good pass catcher, too. His fumble's a big problem. That was a big problem last year, so, that wasn't good for us. So I think that's kind of a reason he got cut, and I feel like we just got better. And it really shows the Saints have a ton of depth at that position, and we just don't need Coleman anymore. I just love what the Saints did to get more wide receivers and bring depth, so we don't need wide receivers like Coleman. He wasn't a bad wide receiver and he wasn't bad at his job, but we just he's not necessary anymore because we have players that can now block and catch, not just one. So that's really helpful for us as a team, so we don't have just one-dimensional players. We could have both dimensionals. Michael Thomas is a really good blocker. Ginn's now veteran blocker. Same with Michael Floyd. So we have a lot of good blockers too, so we don't really need Coleman anymore. So and that also leads to the openings, the signings of safety Ricky Jefferson and tight end John Phillips, which transitions us nicely into our next news topic, which is the Saints signed both of those players. At LSU, Ricky Jefferson had 23 tackles and 1 interception in 5 games, and he had 2 picks the year before when he started in 10 games, so he was good really when he played a lot, but he didn't play. He only played 5 games. In 2016, he was signed to the practice squad of the Raiders in 2017, but he got dropped at the end of last year, and then he was signed by the Saints, the hometown kid. That all the fans are going to want to see him succeed. So we'll see what he's got. This is a chance for him to show all his skills, and we kind of need a little depth at safety. So we'll see what he's got. Maybe he's got a lot of talent in him. I've never seen him play, so I can't really say much on him. But he was pretty good at LSU when he played, but little injuries here and there. So, but we'll see what he got. We'll see what he got in training camp. And Phillips, the tight end, I think he was signed as a depth piece just because, tight ends the last couple of days, Benjamin Watson's been out and Human's been out. So, I think it was just a depth move. If everyone comes back healthy, he'll probably be cut. But, it's a good move. He's a really good blocker. And, sometimes you just need that. So, he was on our team the last 2 years and blocked really well. He actually started 4 games in 2016. So, I think, he's really good blocking. Not bad pass catcher if we really need him in a pinch. But, you take what you can get. And, and Phillips replaced Brandon Coleman on that roster. His stats obviously aren't amazing, but he's a blocking tight end, so he does what he does well, and that's really good for a 3rd string, 4th string tight end. But, I think just in the first preseason game, we're going to see a lot of Dan Arnold and Deion Yelder because Benjamin Watson definitely won't play. It doesn't look like Human will play either because, they're just coming back from injuries. Watson, I don't think we know what's wrong with him, but, he's just veteran, I think, stuff because, he is getting older, so I'd rather have him not practice big time now, have him save all his, bullets for the regular season, or at least later in the preseason and training camp when he can really, save all his times getting hit. So I think that's okay for him to be out. But, Human, I think he had a little injury to start, so we'll see what he can do. I mean, he was on the PUP list to start, but now he's not on that anymore. So, I think it's just easing him back into it. Probably by the second or third preseason game, we'll see him back in action in the games. But I don't think the first one, they'll probably hold him out. And they'll start with, I think that's why we have Phillips so he can play in the preseason games as well as Dan Arnold and Deion Yelder. But the next news topic is Drew Brees. He sat down with Rebecca Toback for a Q&A section. So we really learned a lot on what, Brees' future is going to be for this year, upcoming seasons. And we really learned of his plans for his life and his life, during football, after football. So I think that was really interesting. So first, Brees said that, there's still a lot to accomplish in his career and still feels like, he has a huge purpose for his career and there's a reason to be out there getting hit, throwing passes and stuff like that. He said his main goal is to win a Super Bowl, another one with the Saints, and bring the Who Dat Nation another Super Bowl. That's his main goal out of anything, stats, it's a Super Bowl. And, he feels like, they have a window to do that, and I believe so too, so he's going to go after it. And he feels like, there's still a lot to improve on with this team. He feels like, with the free agents that were brought in, he feels like that will make them improve from last year and feels like just stuff that they did, worse last year, they're going to do better this year. So that will be really big. And he feels like, training camp's been a great competitive atmosphere for this team. And, for this team to have camaraderie and come together and really come together as a team. You just see that in some other training camp. When they had fan night, that was a really nice thing to see, even from afar. The defense was into it, fans were really into it, so that was really nice to see. But he did, Brees did well in that too. I know he had that one pick, but he looked pretty good, and the offense looked like it was getting back on track at the beginning of this week. But also, Brees said that he could play to 45, that's still an option, or maybe longer, but his thing is, does he want to play at 45? He feels like his body will allow him to, but does his, mind want to? Does he want to spend some more time with his kids? So I think that's something he'll have to weigh in his future. But for now, I think he'll be playing, and, he feels like he could physically play to 45, so why not? If him, I think he's going to chase that Super Bowl. If he gets a Super Bowl, I think another one, I think it's really going to see, is if the window closes and they have a Super Bowl, I don't know how many more years he would really play. But, we'll have to see, and that's really in the future. It's hard to predict that stuff. But, if we win this, let's just say we win a Super Bowl in the next 3 years, knock on wood, I don't think he would play after, our window is closed. There's just no reason. I think he would just retire. And on to our next news is that Saints believe defensive end rookie Marcus Davenport will take the next step of his development after he returns from his pulled muscle. So while injured, defensive line coach Ryan Nielsen said that he's been studying a ton of film and learning from all the other guys, and he's eager to get back to make that next step, and he feels like that's definitely possible. Nielsen feels like it was a very positive interview about Davenport, so I think that's going to be he's ready to take that next step. Davenport has been a little underwhelming so far in this training camp, but he had some pop plays, he had some nice plays. But, he's now close to returning, from the pulled muscle. He was on the practice field Monday. So I feel like, if he's returning, ready to go, I think that's really big. Maybe because he probably won't play the first preseason game. And number two, will probably play a lot. So I think just to get, the NFL game under his feet and dip his toes into the game. So I think that will be big for him. And now to our final piece of news is that just a whole training camp update we'll give you. So the depth chart came out. The first Saints unofficial depth chart came out a couple of days ago, and there were a lot of great things to just see, and just really gave us an insight to where the coaches are coming from and who's going to play preseason game 1, preseason game 2, and just onto the season. So first we'll start with the offense and kind of just intriguing things. So first in the QB battle, we have Tom Savage was ahead of Taysom Hill in the QB battle, so that really shows that Savage has been ahead. Savage has played better. I was really actually pleasantly surprised how Savage has played. On the running backs, Shane Vereen, he was newly signed, and Jonathan Williams were ahead of Terrence West and Boston Scott. So that was interesting. Ted Ginn is still in front of Traquan Smith, so that battle is, I guess, not fully there yet. So Traquan Smith is really in like that fourth role on the outside, but because he won't be in the slot, that's Meredith's job, and he was up there. But he's going to be like that next guy after Meredith. And then really onto the defense was that, Sheldon Rankins and David Onyemata would probably be splitting time at defensive end, defensive tackle, and Tyler Davidson will be at the nose tackle position. So this is kind of interesting because, we've all seen David Onyemata really be ready to take that next step, and they feel like he's just as good as Rankins there. So maybe Rankins and him will be splitting time if Onyemata really made that jump. And that's really encouraging because, supposedly Onyemata's really learned a lot in this training camp. Really looked amazing splash plays off the play. So I think, I want him and Rankins out there a lot. Davidson looks like, he's going to be a good nose tackle. He's a good one tech. But I really feel like, Onyemata's really moving to that three technique defensive tackle, which we kind of need. And Sheldon Rankins is doing that too. So if they could both do that, splitting time, that's not a bad thing. You have a lot of depth. That's really big for our team. Also, other things, you look at the linebackers. You have Demario Davis at will, Manti Te'o at middle linebacker, and A.J. Klein at Sam. So I think the only kind of questionable thing is here, you have Manti Te'o at middle linebacker. He played great last year, so I was one of those people that really liked Manti Te'o. He had a lot of splash plays, really nice plays in this defense against the run. So I'm fine with having a middle linebacker. I think he's a very solid player. But a lot of people were saying they want Anzalone at the will and Demario Davis at the middle linebacker. So that could happen too. I would like to see Anzalone in game action, see if he really come back from that injury. So we'll definitely see that against the Jaguars. So I think that's really big for him. And then, I feel like A.J. Klein will be the same no matter what. But I think that's just really good to see Manti Te'o, who had a really good 2017, get rewarded with, at least a start in the unofficial draft. So I think that's really good. And I think he can progress a little more. I think he's still a little young. I remember when he was first getting drafted at Notre Dame. But, I think he's supposed to be a really good player. He was in the Heisman race, so I think he really has a lot of potential. And I think, if he's, showing that now, that's really good. And then on to the back end, really, Kirk Coleman and Von Bell, they'll be splitting time at strong safety. Really, I think it's going to be nickel with their, they're going to do a lot of three safety sets, and that's really good because Dennis Allen loved three safety sets, so I think that's really nice to get that third safety. Kenny Vaccaro was that third safety last year. Kenny Vaccaro got signed, so congrats to him. I wish all him the best. But back to our depth chart, I just feel like this depth chart, especially on defense, is really solid. We have a lot of good players, and just I feel like a lot of players that they may not be all-stars right out of the gate, but they're really good for our a system, and I think that's going to be really good for our team. Also, you got to look at some special teams. For the kick returner and punt returner, Tommy Lee Lewis is leading the way with Brandon Tate second. So I think that's really big. I think Kamara will probably come in there anyways late in games, late in the season when we really need him. So, but right now it's Tommy Lee Lewis and Brandon Tate leading the way. So now just on to a training camp, just like what I've seen. So first we'll start with the defense. As Marcus Williams have been playing amazing. He had interception in 3 consecutive practices. He's lighting up guys. He's made some great defensive PBUs. He's made, obviously, I'd say he had a pick 6, other picks off Breeze, and he just looks amazing. He looks like he's ready to become, not only a Pro Bowler, but an All-Pro. He just looks really good. Looks like he's making, a huge step from last year, where he had a really good year last year. I think he could have an even better year. He's really playing center field really well, and I think he could be a big key to this defense. Also, Cam Jordan really starting to, find his stride at a couple sacks in the last couple of practices, and Alex Okafor has been really good as well. He's pulled ahead of Marcus Davenport in that battle that they're having. To me, Davenport hasn't even played until Okafor coming off the injury. He's looked amazing and excelled greatly. But, Davenport, hasn't played that much, so I think we'll really see once Davenport's fully healthy, they'll really battle and see what happens. But right now, Okafor is the easy lead there. As I said in past episodes, I really think that Okafor will take the first and second down, and Davenport will come in and select third down rushing situations. And also, Lattimore is also starting to come around. Monday was definitely his best practice by far. Makes some really nice plays on Ted Ginn. And, just the back end as a whole has played really, really good. I definitely see these guys being a top 5 defensive end. That boot gang looks in midseason form already. And now, with all that said about the defense, let's turn over to the offense. Offenses, I think, they had a tough end last week, and tough week last week in general. And this week they've looked much better. Sunday was definitely their best practice. Monday they were solid as well. Breeze looks really good now coming in to this week. He had a tough little last week, but now he's been much better this week. And then the backups, Savage has looked the clear number 2. Taysom Hill, we'll see how he does in the preseason game, both of them, but I think, Savage will definitely be the number 2 right now. Also, Meredith is now back on the field practicing. He's looked really good connecting with Breeze, much better than when he first was seen on practice like a couple weeks ago. And then also, the clear standout has been Michael Thomas. He has looked amazing day after day, still making great catches on Kenny Crawley. And Lattimore. He's doing amazing stuff. Acrobatic catches, in traffic, some just great stuff that I don't think anyone else can do. Just seeing his splash plays on the field has really been a pleasure to watch. Traquan Smith has been really good too, and Ted Ginn's made some nice plays as well, who's really had a nice camp now coming forward. And then, besides that, offensive line's looked very, very steady. And the tight ends, Benjamin Watson's been out the last couple of days. Same with Michael Human, and so as we've seen a lot of our undrafted tight ends, which Dan Arnold's been really, really good. He's been popping off the page, has really had a great training camp. Deion Yeldred, who people thought would have a really good training camp, has been lagging a little bit, but still he's been all right. We'll see what he does in the preseason games, because I think that's a really nice measurement of where everyone's at. And then special teams, I think we'll move that to our next topic. And Lutz has looked amazing. Had a little shaky start to training camp, but now looking amazing, making all kicks. He's the only kicker here in training camp, so that's really big. And also Morstead has looked very good as well. And then, kick returning, punt returning, it's Lewis and Tate really in the front line. And then Kamara, I think he'll be like our, special weapon late in games, late in the season. When we really need those games, and, we're going to need, extra points, extra field position. And I think that's when Kamara really come in. It's not like Tommy Lee Lewis and Brandon Tate are bad. Just Kamara, I think, is just better at it. Better in open space. But, Brandon Tate's been good there too, so I really think that's really why we signed him, and I think it's going to pay off. Also, I really just feel like, Tommy Lee Lewis and, Tate are just, they're very solid back there, and I think they're going to make our returning game very steady until the late season when we could have Kamara come in. But now, I think that wraps up our training camp update. So now on to our main topic of this week, and that's 5 things to look for in Saints at Jaguars. This was suggested by Whodat Fan 132343, and so let's just get right into it. So I feel like the number one thing, there's no particular order. I'm just gonna name off 5 things. So I think number 1 is definitely the QB position battle. So really, who starts this game is gonna show where the battle's starting at, and then and really see what page the coaches are on. Also, obviously how their play plays off. Is Savage going to be like the guy in Houston last year who was making unwarranted risks, or this year, being that, I'm not going to say game manager, a person who takes care of the ball, takes calculated risks that, pay off, because, he's throwing the ball down the field this training camp, and he's throwing some nice balls, and I think that's really good. And, when you look at Taysom Hill, is he going to be that guy, that playmaker, that we saw in college and last year's preseason, or is he going to be a guy that, his mechanics really show that are just not that good, and that, he can't really be a, QB in this league. So I think we'll all see that, first game right out of the gate, and I think that's going to be really big. And, you just look at the preseason stats of last year. You look at Taysom Hill, he was 14 of 20 with 2 TDs, no picks. He also had a rush TD. Tom Savage, he was pretty good in training, preseason too, but he got his job taken away by Watson, so he wasn't that good. He was just mediocre, and Watson was good, so Watson took that job there, and I think that's really that's why he's here. So if he succeeded in Houston, he wouldn't be here. So now he's here looking for a second chance, looking to back up Drew Brees, and I really feel like if he can be like he was in training camp, he's going to be pretty good. And I think we'll see that how the offense is game 1. So now on to our second thing to look forward to is how will the rookies look in playing in actual games. I mean, rookies like Traquan Smith, Boston Scott, Latrell Jamerson, undrafted free agents like Dan Arnold. And then, players that really didn't play last year were still rookies like Anzalone. To me, how is their practices and how good their practices are, how's that going to transfer onto the field? And, you just look at their success in training camp. I think it definitely transfer onto the field, should transfer on the field. But I think we'll really see, and I think that's really something to look forward to and something to, really look for as you're watching the game. And next, our number 3 thing to look for is, will the defense be able to translate what they've done in the training camp to the games, that vibe that they're really showing to the media, the fans, everything. From top to bottom, this defense looks tenacious, energetic, physical, chip on their shoulder. Really, everything the defense should have, they have. I mean, they look like one of the best defenses that the Saints have had in a very long time. They've had one of the best, Saints defensive training camps in, probably this Peyton era, that we're looking at here. And that, can, if it's backups, triple backups, starters, can they transfer that to the field? Can they, have that tenacious attitude, really go onto the field, being physical? Will they be able to transfer that onto the field? And I think that's something to look forward to. Because even last year, in preseason, we had 2 really good games in preseason. That's 2 games we won. The defense was lights out, and that really transferred on, to the field in the regular season, where the first few games were shaky, but after that our defense was pretty good, especially because those first few games, take out those, we're a very, very good defense. We were like 15th. So if this can transfer into preseason, it probably will be able to transfer into the regular season as we saw last year, and for other teams past. So I think that's really going to be a key thing to watch for this team. So the number 4 thing to look for in the Saints Jaguars game will be see how good our depth is really put to the test. Is for the regular season, we're really going to see our depth pieces start and see, are they viable backups. I know they'll be playing against other backups, but will they be able to succeed against other teams' backups is going to be really big, because at the end of the day, we'll probably be playing those backups, because injuries. We need depth in this league. So if we have depth, I think, we see that our depth is playing well. I think that's a really telling, story for us. Preseason matters. It does. As much as, a lot of people say it doesn't, it definitely matters about, seeing your depth, see what you really got at those positions. Even though you're not starters you're playing, you really see what you got in depth-wise. So I think we really got to see, are our backups going to be playing well against other backups? How is our depth tested, by other teams, and how do we compare with those teams, depth-wise? And I think we'll see that right away, because the Jaguars, they're a very good team too. So we'll see, how we look, our backups versus their backups, or whatever. Because you really like to see, just how our team does against theirs, because it's competition. Whatever it is, it's competition, and we're playing a game, and that's going to be really big. So on to our 5th thing to look for is actually who will be playing in these games. We know, Drew and, the veterans for us, Calais Campbell, the veterans for them, will not be playing on the field. But, a lot of young guys, will they play? Will Kamara get a snap? Will Lattimore get a snap? Marcus Williams, will he get a snap? How about, Von Bell? Ryan Ramczyk, Davenport, will he come back, play a little bit? Ken Crawley, etc. For the Jaguars, like Ramsey, Bortles, Fournette, Telvin Smith, etc. I think if you see who's on the field, I think that's really good to see how our players are doing. So, if we're playing against the first team, Jaguars defense with our backups, and, you don't put as much weight as it, but, if it's our first team defense against their backups, you don't put as weight as it going our way. So, we really want to see on a level playing field and really see what's happening. If our second team offense is doing well against their first team defense, that's really good. So I think you can put a lot of weight into that and see that, we're pretty good at that, positions. But, I think we'll see, and I don't think that'll be that big of a, difference, because I think the Jaguars will put their second team out. We'll probably put our second team out. But, you'll just see the competition and how we stack up against them, and how our depth against their depth, how is our backups versus, maybe those starters will play and our backups will play, and we'll really get to see. But, you got to judge, and your whole thing to start off as judge is who's on the field, and, what sets. Are they going to be complicated? Probably not. It's probably going to be very simple sets. But, it's just good to see, and that's how you're going to judge it. And, simple sets is usually good, because you really get to see the talent of the players and, really their raw talent, on the field. So, I just got to say, before I wrap up this session, I'm so excited for this game. Just to see football playing, contact against another team is just extremely exciting, and just can't wait for the season. Football's finally back, There was football game, the Hall of Fame game, last week. So I think that's, it's really exciting, and can't wait to watch this game. And I just want to say I will tweet and post on Instagram a recap of the game, condensed thoughts and just, right away thoughts. And then next week we will have all our thoughts of that game, preview of our next game in preseason week 2. and that will be a jam-packed episode as well. But I think we'll get our full analysis in that episode, and just right away quick recap will be, I'll post on Twitter, Instagram, and all other social media we are on. So with that, let's get into some Who Dat Nation fan questions. So first, we have a question from Who Dat 412343, and their question was, who do you think will get cut from the team at the end of the preseason and training camp? So there'll probably be people that were on the team last year that are going to get cut this year, or people we signed get cut. So I think I'm just going to go through a couple of candidates. So I think one of the running backs, if it's young, if it's an older one, veteran, I think young. See, and probably not Edmonds, but maybe Jonathan Williams. Scott won't get cut, so maybe Trey Edmonds or Jonathan Williams, or a vet like West or Vareem. I think probably one's going to have to get cut, or to the practice squad, because we have too many. You can't have 6 running backs on a team. I think 4 is probably suffice enough. So I think we'll really get to see where that shapes up. And I would cut a younger one so you could put it on the practice squad. I think Jonathan Williams played on the practice squad before, so I think he would be a nice addition to that practice squad, and a nice depth. And it'll be easy for us to cut him and go into the practice squad, because he's been there already, and he probably won't get taken off another roster, because we took him off the practice squad. So probably maybe there'd be another person, but you never know there. And also maybe we'll have another wide receiver cut after Coleman. He'll probably just be an undrafted free agent wide receiver, but maybe it's going to be either Brandon Tate or Floyd. I don't think Brandon Tate, maybe Floyd if he is not really showing up. So I guess we'll have to see there. And then also on the defense, there are a lot of rumblings that Al-Quadin Muhammad, the defensive end, former 5th-round pick, is having a really bad training camp. And if he doesn't show up in these games, he's a game player, though. He usually plays bad in practice and then plays great in games. So I think we'll really see. But if he cannot show up in these games, he will be cut for sure. But if he plays well in the games, I think he won't be cut. And besides that, we'll probably, besides him, I just don't see us maybe cutting a lot of other players. Maybe it's Stupar, but I don't really think. I think Stupar's a really good special team piece, that we need. And, besides that, there'll probably be a lot of, UDFAs that will go to the practice squad or just get cut outright. So our second question is from Who Dat Fan 41, and he said, what are your thoughts on Brandon Coleman being released, and do you think he'll come back with the team when he gets healthy? So my answer said, look, we talked a lot about Brandon Coleman earlier, but I just think, my thoughts on it is that, he was cut because we had enough depth and we don't really need him anymore. It wasn't necessary to keep him. And he was injured. So, really he was just taking up a spot that, wasn't needed on the roster right now. And that, even though he's a solid blocker, we have a lot of other solid blockers. So, for him, it just wasn't, we have a lot of what he does, and, when that happens, that's a recipe for a player to get cut. Even if he was healthy, it was really hard for him to make this team. We'd have to show that he'd be a solid receiver and route runner, compared to just a blocker. And, when injured, you can't show that. It's within, a failed physical designation, And, so with that, he would have to sign with any team. He'd have to get a pass on the physical, And, I think if he passes his physical, he could probably come right back to the Saints, especially if we need depth. I think it was really a low-risk move for the Saints. They're cutting him because they know they could probably bring him right back if he passes, his physical. Sean Payton said they're on really good terms, and if the point is needed, they will definitely re-sign him, and he's open to re-signing, so that's really nice as well. So, really, even though he was cut, really ended on a good relationship, and I think, we could definitely bring him back, especially if injuries. I mean, his stats obviously weren't great. We said them earlier. But, to be, fourth receiver, fifth receiver, I think he's a really good fourth or fifth receiver. You got to say that. I mean, even though he hasn't really panned out the way we've really hoped, I mean, he's, for a fourth, fifth receiver, he's a good fourth or fifth receiver, as I said. So, even though he hasn't panned out and it's really been a, disappointing career as a Saint for him, I think there's still time for him to come back and really revitalize his career for the Saints with someone else, because he seems like a really good guy, and, I'm wishing him all the best there. But first, before we wrap this up, I just want to say thank you to everyone asking our questions and, who suggested the top 5 this week. So with all of that, I think it's time to wrap up this podcast. So if you enjoy this podcast, please share it, because we're a growing podcast. We would really like if, you could share it with anyone. Any other Saints fans would be greatly appreciated. So, just because, we're a growing podcast, and, we would love to expand into to more Saints fans, and that would be really helpful. And you could do that, just by following us on Twitter, telling other people that we're on Twitter so they can follow us, telling people that we're on Instagram, telling people that we're on Podomatic, iTunes. That'd just be really helpful for us. Writing a review so more people get to see Who Dat Discussion on iTunes. That'd be really helpful as well. And and Google Play, please write an interview on there, not an interview, a review. That would be really helpful as well. So just any way you can reach out, and tell us about how we're doing, or tell other people. That would be extremely helpful for us. And because we're just a growing podcast, only a couple, not even 10 episodes in, but we've grown a lot. So I'm very happy of how we've grown, and it's a dream come true. As I said, I never thought 8 episodes in we would have all these viewers. So that's just, it's a dream come true, as I just said. So, if you enjoy this podcast, you can follow us on Twitter at the Who Dat Dis, on Podomatic at the Who Dat Discussion, and on YouTube we are the Who Dat Discussion. On YouTube, please subscribe to our channel, like our videos, and hit that notification icon. So also, as I said before, we're on Instagram, so please follow us at Who Dat Discussion. There, please, like our posts, follow us, do all that good stuff. And then also, please subscribe to our Google Play channel and our iTunes channel, because I know a lot of people use, Google Play, iTunes, because whatever, Android phone, Apple phone, because if you have those, and it's very convenient for you to listen to your podcast on there. We are on both of those, so that's really nice. A lot of people listened to iTunes last week, so that was really good as well. We got a couple reviews to share. So first, we have a review from Podomatic from Domegoer9. He said, "Love the content you are putting out. Keep doing what you're doing. Got to give this podcast a 5 out of 5. And also we got a review from user 91341 on iTunes, and he said, "Elite Saints podcast, great opinions and analysis of the team. Keep up the good work." So I just want to say thank you to user 91341 and Domegoer9 on Podomatic, for those reviews. It's really helpful for me, to see how I'm doing and see how I'm connecting, with the fans, and just, to hear these good reviews is just, it's very helpful, and just, I'm very happy that I'm getting good reviews. I would never think, that my podcast would get good reviews. So that's just, it's extremely heartwarming to me. So, if you like the podcast, please leave a review. That's really helpful for me. So, with all that said, I want to say prove them right, and Who Dat?